The aim of my subjective project practice is to explore the quest for belonging as experienced by third culture kids and adults or cross-culture kids and adults within the framework of biomythography. Let me explain that. What I have discovered in my research is that it is quite common for people of mixed heritage, myself included, or people who may have come from another country, to feel as if they exist between worlds, caught between reality and a fictive experience, a changeling, semi-mythological or biomythographical experience. And often that is the point where one's current culture and one's other culture or cultures meet. Frequently, this is accompanied by sensations of loss, grief, confusion, disorientation. But also, it brings a sense of being part of a greater world, of having other cultural identities to explore and celebrate. So for me, this is a very personal subject, but also at a time of divisive attitudes towards the other, this is an important social issue that I think is worth exploring photographically. And here I think there are resonances with the work of, for example, Zanel Moholy, whose self-portraiture not only confronts the stereotypes of black femininity, but also, and more personally to my work, explores the concepts of self-identity in relation to history, geography, and autobiographical narrative. And also the work of Tomoko Sawada, who uses photography and performance art techniques to explore ideas of identity and culture through traditional and contemporary methods of portraiture. Now, both these practitioners use self-portraiture, and that's something that I will come back to a little bit later. For now, let me say that my intent throughout this practice is to explore that liminal space between those cultural identities I've just mentioned and how that experience might be expressed and discussed photographically, especially where photography can successfully exploit the clash between reality and the fictive. I guess I'm looking at the point where the veracity of photography meets the proposals, as it were, of fiction. And that is a place in which I've been steeping myself since the MA began for me a year ago. The more I have ventured into research, the more I've seen this way of working as being pertinent and complementary to the subject I'm exploring. And my challenging of the veracity of truth exists in a search for, as Steph Cosgrove states in some of our course material, a unified fictional reality. And for me, this is both a space discovered in the making and output of an image or image sequence, and also in the deliberate interplay between images that might suggest other meanings or realities through their relationship. So, how am I exploring this balance of fact and fiction in my work aesthetically? Well, as can be seen in some of the images I'm presenting here from my own practice, frequently that balance comes from the use of familiar environments, sometimes domestic, and objects, such as food, within which an illusion of fact is being played out. Now, this balances, for me, the physical signs of reality with the psychological and or perceptual disturbance of them through these more, shall we say, deceptive elements. In a similar way to, for example, Jeff Wall's image Insomnia. And by extension, Christina de Midel, whose project The Afronauts, though different in subject matter, is one that has a deep resonance for me. Now, she took the Zambian space project from the 1960s as a basis for a sequence of images that use science fiction and literary motifs, plus the performative, to create a fictive body of work as a response to the subject. And it's that dichotomy of fact or illusion that fascinates me. And also, as a side note, like Midel, that desire to explore something fictive comes as an opposing response to the fact that my commercial practice rarely asks me to create work that questions the illusory nature of what I am making images of. It could be argued then that my work has a kind of trickster element to it. But a trickster is, by definition, someone who deceives people. I think, like in King Lear's Fool, my intention is to reveal something about the nature of my subject. So while my practice sometimes contains elements which might not be 100% truthful to the moment, they are grounded in real experiences that I hope lead the viewer towards an understanding of the experience and perhaps to connect the dots of their own biographical existence. And in this aspect of my practice, I see it as akin to someone like Christian Patterson in his seminal work, Red-Headed Peckerwood. Patterson wanted to bring the real and the fictional together, both in terms of image content and also physically within the pages of his book, where he utilised recreated artefacts and documentation in order that the viewer would experience something that echoed his own sensation of discovery as, like an archaeologist, he went about unearthing the elements of the true crime that was the inspiration for his project. All this leads me to say that, for me, it's clear that the spine upon which all of my project hangs is narrative, just as it would in a novel or a piece of cinema. And I would say that at this stage, this is probably the least successful part of my project for a number of reasons. So let me unpack those. The work is currently diverse, overly so. I have been deliberately experimental across all 4 modules to date, but more so in this one, as it is my final module before my final major project. So I have been borrowing from genres, as Lisa Suter puts it in her book, Why Art Photography? And that is in an attempt to create some hybrid forms by deliberately juxtaposing those genres. And in this, I'm trying to find an authentic voice for the project, but I don't think I've succeeded yet, and I may not. I've made the work in a very instinctive manner, frequently pursuing ideas that have come from sensations within my own history, from reading, and from the experiences of others I'm collaborating with. Now, while this has led to some great practice-led discoveries, I think it has currently led me to a conundrum of these genres, these hybrid forms, one that seems perhaps to be confusing to viewers of the work and is, I guess, muddying the narrative right now. So it might be that I need to separate out the more editorial work from the allegorical and perhaps present them as different streams of work. I don't know. I'd really like to find a way that the diversity of genres play off each other successfully to become that unified fictional reality. Finally, earlier I mentioned self-portraiture. And in this, I need to return to that to close in what is an inevitable discussion of how COVID-19 and the lockdowns we are currently facing are impacting my practice, much of which involves working closely with collaborators in diverse locations. Now, late March and April 2020 were no exceptions. I had 4 portrait sessions booked, including a shoot with a Somali family at their pre-Ramadan Shabana celebration. But those elements of my current work in progress planning have had to stop for now. So I have started to turn to myself more directly as a subject. And I am attempting to contextualize this in terms of our new experience of isolation with my biographical sensations of racial and cultural isolation. Whether this will be successful in terms of resolving my work in progress portfolio remains to be seen for now.